So since Anali, you're already on screen, you mentioned that you've lost 41% of calls as a result of COVID for the first half of this year. I just wonder, are there any signs of recovery? How are things developing since March?
Yes, we are picking up now because we are easing the movement restrictions, and especially because the Mindanao region is known for its agricultural and aquaculture industries. So these are now moving in its, not entirely in its normal or regular frequency, but it's picking up. And hopefully by December, these ports in Mindanao will really meet its target volume.
Okay, so do you expect your target volumes to return to 2019 levels by 2021, or do you think it may be a little bit later?
We're hopeful that it will be back in 2021.
Excellent. Okay, that's very encouraging. No problem. A question for Ian, if I may. Ian, you were talking about Batangas, and you also mentioned with Batangas, you mentioned quite some significant car movements.
Yeah.
I just wonder whether, and maybe it's not appropriate for the geography in which you're in, but are you able to import car parts, then manufacture the cars within the port, and then export also within the port? I know in some geographies that's something that is done as more or less as a free trade zone, so that there's no customs to pay.
So if I understand your query, Steve, is if the port is capable of re-exporting, say, assembled cars, is that?
Yeah. So you import the parts first. You manufacture the cars within the port, and then you export.
Okay. Actually, the assembly facilities of the car manufacturers are outside of the port. It's relatively close. It's about 50, 60 kilometers from the port of Batangas. And these are located in export processing zones because they're all part of the industrialized sector in south of Manila. So to answer your question is no, we do handle the import of, say, containerized parts for assembly, whether these are semi-knocked down or completely knocked down parts. Those are all brought into the respective manufacturing plants. Some occasionally we would handle some of those just-in-time deliveries, but as containers. Then they are brought to manufacturing plants, assembled, mostly for local sales, but there were occasions before of some cars for exports because we did have assembly for right-hand driven vehicles to be exported to other areas within South Asia.
Okay.
But generally, it's all local consumption.
Sure. All right. Then I think there's a question just come in again for you, Ian. Please ask Ian to be more specific about which data they use to establish connectivity on supply chain hinterland. Okay. Are they ready to share APIs on their big data? But anyway, you can see that. Can you answer that one?
In terms of the supply chain hinterland, the work with I don't know about what data specifically is being looked into, but insofar as building a solution is concerned, what we normally do is we work with specific companies. So let's say if we work with an automotive brand, okay. So then we try to understand for them, how does the entire supply chain work at the moment? Where are the current, you can say, inefficiencies in terms of moving goods. And in Manila, the challenge is to actually try to move less, particularly within Manila. Anytime you try to use the road, it's always going to be a problem because of truck bans, as well as traffic when it's not truck ban. And therefore, the challenge for importers or exporters is, can they be immune to a traffic? Traffic being, if the traffic delays the movement of my containers from the port to my plant, then it's going to be problematic for my manufacturing process. So the understanding here is, well, the data might say is, well, how long does it take you currently? What are the challenges when you do it, say, in nighttime deliveries? And that's when we come in and say, look, you know what we can do? We can get your containers before you even clear with customs, because we have a facility that can clear the containers from customs in that facility. So we do it at the time that you still don't need the containers, because they usually have maybe a week before they actually need it. So we move it in the first, say, 5 days. It stays with us in a hinterland terminal or a dry port. It's cleared there, and it just waits advisory from the shipper or the importer to get it, so we can deliver it, and then that's it. So that's basically how we work towards that. Data, it's really more of information between us and the company, whether it's an auto manufacturer or it's an FMCG company. The data being shared, it's more of, we have to get information like what ship calls are we talking about, and we have visibility of that through manifests. So we work with them to give us all of this prior to arrival of vessel. So we then plan everything, including truck movements to the port, and then pick up, and then delivery outside, and then of course going to the plant. So it's like a closed system between us and the client in terms of information sharing on bills of lading, requirements, special requirements, and all the rest of it.
Okay, no, understood. A question for Siti. I very much enjoyed your presentation on, particularly on Sepang.
Steve, are you there?
Is which cargoes you're anticipating handling? I mean, are you anticipating competing with Singapore and Tanjung Pelepas, or what is your main origin of cargo and destinations?
Sorry, Steve, can you repeat the question? It's kind just now you break off. I can't hear
yes.
what you say. Yeah,
No, sorry, that's absolutely fine. Yes, I think I lost connection for a little while. I just wondered, what is, for Sepang Bay and for your transshipment hub suggestion, what origins of cargo and destinations of cargo are you expecting? I mean, are you competing or expecting to compete with Singapore and Tanjung Pelepas, or is it something different?
Okay, thank you for your question, Steve. Well, in my presentation, of course, the focus is BIMP-EAGA. And we, Sabah is one of the members in BIMP-EAGA, and obviously, of course, when we say we play a role in positioning our Sepang Bay as the regional transshipment hub, it means that we are aiming to cater for the targeted market around BIMP-EAGA region. And in no way, of course, that we are competing with Singapore or PTP in the aspect of transshipment hub. So that is a way long, a long way for us to achieve that. And even with our expansion, it is only our expansions of our project expansion in SBCP is only to lengthen until 1,000 meters. And of course, to dredge more, to cater for the 5th generations of vessel, which we think that is the main liners that going around the region at the moment. So basically, we still need the connectivity to the ports like Singapore, and PTP or Port Kelang and so forth. But then, of course, we are looking at more on the intra-Asia gateway. So we are closer to that region, the Far East countries. So
Yeah.
that's why we are saying that we can tap into this market. So besides that, we are also looking at collaborating this connectivity with other ports in BIMP-EAGA region. As you know, the geographical of BIMP-EAGA, they are all smaller ports. I mean, we need to have a consolidations of cargo. We don't have volumes to act alone. So we need synergy. We need collaboration with other ports in BIMP-EAGA. So that's why because putting investment in developing expanding your port per se, it will not we will not achieve anything if you don't collaborate, because we need the volume around there. So if I answer your question, Steve, we are not competing with Singapore or PTP and as such. So my friends over there, we still need the connectivity actually. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. No. That's understood. And I wanted to clarify for maybe some of the people who are also listening that it wasn't a major transshipment hub. It's kind of an intra-Asian one, which is fine, because that's also a growing market. So, but who is going to be paying for the dredging?
For this so-called expansion in SBCP, this is a supply-driven kind of strategy. Of course, now the capacity is our capacity in SBCP is like 500,000 TEUs, but this is like the aspirations of the state to position SBCP, and of course the fund are coming from the federal government, and we are blessed that our federal government really support us on this, and looking at the East Malaysian side to tap into the untapped market of the BIMP-EAGA.
Okay. No, but very interesting. Very interesting. I'd like to hear some more from you at a later date, but we can take that separately. So let's see, what questions do we have from anonymous attendee? Are the port operations and PPA see opportunities in terms of volumes in plans other countries to shift their supply chains from China to other countries in Asia? I think that's how do port operators see opportunities in terms of volumes to shift their supply chains from China?
Hello, Steve.
You can have a go first.
Steve, can you repeat the question? Because there's one technical.
Yeah, it seems my internet is unstable. So let me try again. Hopefully you can hear. So how do port operators see opportunities in terms of volumes of other countries to shift their supply chains from China to other areas in Asia? And let's try again with all three of the port participants, but we'll start with Anali first, if I may.
Thank you, Steve. Of course, yes. We look at that as an opportunity. So how can the government address this? We will have to prepare our policies or shift, be open. That's why we are encouraging private sector participation in the operation of ports, in order for all ports, especially us here in the BIMP-EAGA region, to be more modern and thus get more volume.
Okay, Siti, can you can you take the same question, please?
Okay. Yes, Steve. Yes, we can see that, you know, this is the effort that we want, the initiative that we actually would like to shift from, uh, from other countries to countries here in Asia. And we have still, untapped market that we have here in BIMP-EAGA. And of course, but we need the government to really support in terms of providing the infra to this region. So yes, we are very much encourage that.
Okay. No problem. Ian, can you also try to address that? Then we'll come back to some other questions.
Yes, Steve. Yeah, we do see a lot of opportunities there, and we actually have. I mean, particularly, the move to say manufacturing sector to shift, say, towards the Philippines, of course, because that means the volume of not just the exports but also the imports of the raw materials, and we've seen this as evident in Batangas, wherein there's a large cluster of Japanese manufacturing companies in south of Manila. So we see a lot of these importations of all the raw materials for production. And of course, once these are produced, then they are re-exported, and they are all part of an export processing zone cluster. And so, of course, that means more jobs, not just really the volumes through the ports, but really more jobs within the local areas within that area. Yeah.
Okay, back to CT, I think. How much of the domestic Malaysian trade is shipped out of Sabah container terminal?
Okay. Actually, for Sabah ports, all Sabah ports, we are basically handle all domestic goods. So we have actually 30% export of 30% export, mostly palm oil. And in terms of import is more on the in containers. So this is like we have an imbalance of trade actually here in Sabah. So that's why we need industrialization to create more volumes, cargo volumes. So basically, in terms of container, it is like 50-50, meaning to say if coming in 80% and going out also 80%. In terms of empty and laden.
Yeah. No, understood. Okay, no, that's helpful. Again, there's another very general question which I think we can put to all our panelists. So we will start with Dylan Arno, and the question is: will the COVID pandemic change how ports operate in the future? So is there going to be less automation? I mean, it's time for crystal ball gazing, I guess.
Yeah, if I could give a clear answer on that one, I was not sitting over here, let's say that. So it's really looking into a crystal ball. Matter of fact, I don't know an answer to this question. I think there will be an impact on doing business, yes, but what it will be exactly in this case, I don't know, to be honest.
No, fine.
What about you?
Very hard to make any forecast on that. We think there is a change ongoing, and we have to see how this will develop in the next few months.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's pass it over to some of the port guys. And Ali, maybe you can have a go first. I think maybe the idea behind the question is because of COVID, then there has to be further distance between all the people on the port, and therefore maybe there will be a situation where ports are almost forced to automate more. I think that's what's behind the question. Maybe I misinterpret, but maybe that's one of the questions we could look at.
Indeed, yes, Steve. We will have to move faster than required to automation or more online engagements. So we at PPA are starting to speed up this online or reducing the face-to-face transactions. So hopefully we'll get there. There will be more investment in technology and in automation.
Okay, good. Ian, can you also comment on that, please?
Yes, thank you, Steve. And yeah, I mirror what Adelie mentioned. We actually welcomed the PPA's initiative for that online transaction, which was recently institutionalized. For quite a long time, in fact, as port operators, we've always wanted to have more online transactions than you do, with people going to tellers and counters to transact. It makes for more efficient transactions. It also makes for faster, and on our end, it also reduces the cost of transaction in terms of people having to be there, people having to be working at night and all that. And so, yeah, what we've seen is that the pandemic sort of is a catalyst, you might say, in the sense of putting the pressure on all stakeholders to do more online transactions. I mean, you can say it's a good thing from something so bad, but yeah, it's and now there's more. Like for ATI, we're looking into more application of technology in terms of really going from the information on cargo prior to arrival and being able to track all of that, the whole blockchain discussion. And, now it comes into fruition, you might say, or it comes into the forefront of making sure that we have all the right information about the cargo from the start, from where it came from, all the way to when it arrived here, so that all duties and taxes are all accurate and transactions can be very clear-cut and seamless. Yeah.
Thank you, Ian. Siti, can you also please try to answer that?
Yes.
Crystal ball gazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, I agreeable with the comments from my counterparts, from Ian, from Annalie, in terms of automation and all that. But well, we also need to be realistic in terms of the situation in BIMP-EAGA itself, as I have mentioned before, and we are basically still, the connectivity between these ports from point to point, they are all scattered around, and the operations of ports still very much conventional. Conventional are still in practice, because they are smaller ships, barges and all that, which actually are going to all these remote areas. So basically, as much as some ports are well developed and things like that, but we also need to look at how we can really, see the supply chain in terms of other ports that needs the spoke connectivity. So as much as, yes, this post-pandemic COVID pandemic have an effect in terms of how we communicate, but I think there is still, a need. There's still quite far, I mean, for us to achieve a total online transactions and things like that in around BIMP-EAGA. Yeah. Thank
Okay,
you.
no problem. Okay, I think we've pretty much exhausted the questions that we've received from the participants or from the audience. I think maybe what we can do, and it's often easier when people are sat next to each other, but if any of the speakers have any questions for other speakers.
None here, Steve.
I think Steve, are you still there?
Yeah, no, I'm still here. I was just waiting to see whether the speakers would like to ask questions of their fellow speakers, but if not, we can
Not from
close.
Peaceful Banter side.
Okay. All right, then. In which case, thank you all the speakers for their time and for their presentations. Actually, it's probably quite apt, finishing on a crystal ball gazing exercise related to COVID, which is pretty much where we started the discussion. So once again, thanks to all our esteemed speakers, to Dial, to Arno, to Lewis, who's probably somewhere in a plane, to Ian, to Siti, and Anali. My appreciation for your time and efforts in getting these presentations and for your time and efforts in answering those questions. It's much appreciated from my side, and I'm sure from Transport Events.